Well, a very warm welcome to you all indeed. Thanks for sticking around. Now, today I have some rather exciting news, or something exciting to reveal to you guys. And it is hidden under the green tarp behind me. I am really excited about this, to be honest. So, obviously, the last few videos, we've done a bit of green laning, but we were also working on Kato, my trusty old Kawasaki, which we were redoing as a scrambler. Now, because I'm doing this project, that doesn't mean I'm stopping the other project. It actually means the opposite. I'm going to be doing two projects at the same time. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, oh, he's mad, he'll never get them both done. But truth be told, before YouTube, I always took on multiple projects. I find it quite handy. It works for some people, it works for me, because when I hit a dead spot with something, I'm waiting on parts or I haven't got the machine to do whatever I need to do, I can flick over to the other project and I can get on that. Now, this thing is going to take a fair bit of doing. This is a very ambitious project, but that excites me because so far what I've done on the YouTube is all stuff that I'm very, very comfortable with. But what keeps tinkering, motorcycling, anything interesting is learning, right? So it's time for me to do a fair bit of learning. Okay, I'm going to need help with this project. I probably won't be able to take it all on myself. There are things I'm going to need help with. This is a very obscure thing. Obscure in the sense of I don't think you can see it anywhere else on YouTube. I think it could be the oldest build series on YouTube. This could be the oldest motorcycle that's getting built in a series on YouTube. If I'm wrong, correct me. But all will become apparent very, very soon. So being that this is fairly obscure, it's not going to interest everyone, which is why it's also good to have the Kawasaki project on the go, because that's going to be a very interesting project. And in fact, I've got a new direction I'm heading with that, and I think it's going to be exciting for you all. But what is good is, being that this is so old, this forces us to go back and learn new things. I'm fairly comfortable with 60s British motorcycles. I'm fairly comfortable with Japanese motorcycles up to about the 90s. This is from a totally different world, and we wouldn't have those bikes without this bike. So regardless of whether this is maybe the sort of thing you would ride, bear that in mind, watch the series, and hopefully you'll learn some things like me and you'll enjoy the build, because this is going to be cracking. Anyway, prepare yourself to be underwhelmed. I'm going to show you what is under the green tarp. Now bear in mind, 1, this is nearly 100 years old, 2, this is an ambitious project, and 3, the only way I can get into doing something like this is to buy the cheap bits that no one wants. Are you ready? Some of you might be feeling thoroughly underwhelmed. Hang in there, all right? Because this has potential. This is going to be a really, really cool build. And what we've got here is a good basis, believe it or not. So, what have we got? This is parts of a 1925 BSA L25, which is a 350 single. So yeah, 1925, nearly 100 years old. And as you can see, there's not that much of it there. So, some of the things that you might face with a project of this age is, where on earth do you get the parts? To be honest, I'm lucky to have these parts. That means that a lot of the other parts are either going to have to be made, or parts from the same era, maybe modified, or what we can find at auto jumbles. And that is why a project like this is such a huge undergoing. It's a lot of work, but it's very, very exciting. So let me tell you a little bit about why I want to do this project. Being that it's a bit of a mad one to take on. 2 years ago, I went up to Stafford with my mate Rick. Now, he specialises in 20s motorcycles. He is incredibly knowledgeable. There's no better man for the job. But basically, we went to this day where we were supposed to be riding other people's bikes around. Anyway, we turned up a day late, so the event wasn't actually on. But in the back of Rick's van, he had one of these. And he said, well, why don't you take it around the block and see how you get along with it? And I took it around, and it took a bit of getting used to. I can't say it was instant that I got along with it, because there's a lot that's different about this in comparison to riding a normal motorcycle. But once things clicked, I found myself really getting along with it. It was agile, it felt fast, and when you look at it, it is so simple that it's fascinating, because this is the origin of motorcycles. And really, not a lot has changed. You might be thinking, well, this looks wildly different to my GSXR or whatever. Yes, fair enough. But the clutch is the same principle. The engine is the same principle. It's still got two wheels. It drives off of a chain. This is where it all started, and this is very, very interesting, especially to visit from a mechanical perspective. Now, obviously, I thought, well, how can I get my hands on them? You're looking at about £5,000, which I haven't got. So, I've got these parts, which I picked up for about 500 quid. Now, you might notice off the bat, there's no engine there. Don't worry about that, because I've got a couple of options there. I'm not worried about it, so you shouldn't be either. Now, being that the last 2 years have been so unpredictable, there is no way I've managed to find the time or motivation to get involved with something like this. However, the other day, once again, I was mucking around with Rick, and he had a different bike over here. Now, this bike is the oldest motorcycle I've ever ridden. It's a 1916 Blackburn. It's belt drive, it's hand shift. It's a mad thing.
Are we going out of this yet, Will?
And I took it around the yard, and once the initial terror had gone, I thought, this is it. This is the movement I needed to get in here, grab this thing, and just crack on with it. So I've told you what model of motorcycle this is, but what do we actually have? And what kind of condition is it in? Now, obviously, it doesn't take a genius to work out that's frame, forks, and tank. Now, this I'm sure is a 25, because I believe the 24 model didn't have this little brace at the front of the girders. Now, the 20s was a very exciting time for motorcycles, because really this is when a lot of experimentation was done. And you can often date stuff by just little modifications they made from year to year. So I believe that is correct. Now, this is all quite heavily corroded. You can see that. I'm not worried about that, because being that this was a time when really there was not too much understanding of what made a really strong frame, everything was very, very thick gauge steel. So in spite of some of the pitting, there's plenty of steel left there. We haven't got to worry about that. Now, looking at the tank, it also doesn't take a genius to work out that we're not going to be using that. The funny thing about this is actually on loan to me, which you might be thinking, that's mad. What good is this to anyone? Well, I will tell you why. Because without it, we wouldn't have much clue of what shape to make the tank. We're going to be fabricating a tank, which is going to be a fairly large undertaking, but we have a pattern that we can make the new tank from. If you didn't have that, you might be going to museums and asking if you can take tracings and measurements and things like that. To have one, even in this condition, is a godsend, really. So we're going to be fabricating a new tank. I might well make it a little bit slimmer. I might change it up a little bit. This one has actually got a little bit of original paint still left on there, so you can see that lovely dark green that BSA used. I want this thing to look like it's been laid up for a long time, and being that parts are going to be so hard to come by, it's not going to be a straightforward restoration. It will probably be a resto mod of some sort. That, and I like having stuff that looks sporty. So in spite of it not being a particularly sporty engine, that's probably the route I will go. These right here are the mounts for the tank. This here is where the shifter plate will bond onto there. So that's where you'll have your gear shift. It's actually a hand shift. That will sit in there. That's a nice little thing to have as well. They do make reproduction ones, but it's nice to have the original. This mangled, rusty looking thing is the foot controls of some sort. So you've got what you would have your foot rubbers on here, and then some various spacers. And this is actually the brake lever right there. I think we might be able to get away with using that or restoring it to a certain extent. But again, it's useful to have the part as a pattern, because you won't find that anywhere else besides museum bikes or maybe a private collection. Now, if you look at the frame, you'll notice it's just the front section of the frame. These are actually stressed member frames. You remember when we were working on Eddie Scrambler, I explained that basically there is no lower part to the frame. The engine will sit in there. This is the same principle, except you actually have these engine plates, gearbox plates, that will go on down there. The engine will go here, in there, and then this gearbox, which is a 3-speed BSA gearbox, will go in this section of the plate, I do believe. Now, the rest of the frame is made up through these parts. So we've got the rear legs there, and then the lower legs with those lovely cast dropouts there. This is actually original. I think this could be original paint. I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to check on that. But these are actually in good nick. So I'm not going to be removing the paint from there. Hopefully I can match this frame to look like those rear legs there. Got a magneto. Doesn't seem that essential when we haven't got an engine, but there is a plan for that, as I said earlier. I'm not going to reveal it until later on in the series. But magneto, basically that will spin round, create a spark. Same principle as, you know, a point system really. This motorcycle is a dream for anyone who doesn't like wiring like me, because in theory it only has to have one wire, which is the HT lead. So you'll catch me mentioning Rick's name a lot in this episode. Now, you may well have seen him on my channel before, but might not be aware of who he is. He is basically a vintage motorcycle guru. There's no real way of explaining Rick, but a man with his knowledge and capability is very, very handy to have on board, and to be honest, I would not be able to do this without him. So I'm looking forward to working with him a bit more, learning from him. It's very exciting to me. It really is, to be opening a totally new chapter of motorcycles, a totally new chapter of engineering, and this is probably a kind of project that not a lot of people get the chance to do these days. A lot of this stuff has either been chucked away or it has been fully restored into some mint bike in a museum somewhere. That's not what I'm doing. I'm here to make something that looks authentic, something that's a little bit custom, and something that's most importantly going to be enjoyable to ride. This also opens up new events to me, events for pre-war motorcycles I can get in there. That's very exciting stuff. So I hope you guys can see the potential in this, but I understand it's going to be difficult, especially when I'm showing you things like this knackered old tank. So you might be thinking, well, there's absolutely naff all there. You would be right in saying that. There isn't a lot, but the beauty of these 20s motorcycles is, even when they're complete, there's not a lot there. So what we're looking at is a solid basis of, I think, a good project. It might be hard to see at the moment, but hopefully you'll stay tuned for this series, and you can see it coming together as well. It'd be quite fun because like heading to the auto jumbles and stuff like that, I'll be able to update you when I've got a part. That's all exciting because it's about the hunt as well. If you could go in and buy stuff off of the shelf for this, I probably wouldn't be as interested in it. Who knows where this motorcycle will take me. It's very, very cool. So I'd be really keen to hear some feedback. What are your thoughts on this project? Drop a comment down below and let me know. As I said, I'll be doing this at the same time as doing the Kawasaki Scrambler, so hopefully it's going to keep all of you interested to a certain extent. Apologies for not making a video in a while. Life has been a little bit difficult recently, but hopefully taking on something like this is going to give me the focus to get in there and really push the limits of what can be done. So a massive thank you to you guys for hanging around in there. And we're actually over 1,000 subscribers, but I think about 122 now, which is really, really cool. So thank you to you guys for your support. Obviously the channel would be nothing without you lot. Now, if you think I'm absolutely mental, I totally understand. But hopefully you can see the potential. Also, let me know in the comments below whether this is actually the oldest build series on YouTube, 1925, so nearly 100 years old. I'd be very, very interested to know, and let me know what your thoughts are, because that also interests me. I like the interaction from you guys. So a massive thank you to you lot for hanging in there and for watching today's video. I am really excited for the next episode in whatever bike build I do, to be honest, because the Scrambler project is equally exciting. So thank you to you guys for watching and listening to my waffling, and I will see you next episode where we might actually start doing something to this. Ta very much.